And welcome back to the Carolina Panthers on the Prowl on this warm Sunday evening right here. I'm joined by Dustin, Amber. I'm the coach, Dick Cox. Again, as we mentioned earlier, this was a game, it looked like at the 4-minute mark, the Carolina Panthers had it in the bag. Amber and I are already talking about her first trip into the locker room, being on the winning side there. And, man, boy, did the tide turn in the last 4 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it was a very somber locker room, to say the least. No one was really talking. A lot of the players packed up real quick and got out as soon as they could. Just wasn't, what we expected. We thought it was going to be a win.
Dustin, it's going to be tough next week. You got to wait and play again next Monday night. You go on the road, but you're going and playing a team that's basically having the same problems you are right now. It may be the best thing to happen to this team to go to a Philadelphia team that's in disarray right now. Their coach is probably on his way out. Their quarterback got a concussion, Michael Vick, out right now, though. This is going to be the battle of the two teams with the most problems right now.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I think one thing you did hit on, I think the only thing that will be good from this team is that they will get away from Charlotte. I mean, there's times when you play at home and you got a lot of pressure on you, a lot of people around you, and when you're losing like this, the pressure just builds and the talk just builds about how you're not playing well. So for them to get away, it'll be good. I mean, if you go back and think about it, their last win was on the road in Washington. So they got away, they played some good football. So maybe it will be good for them, but you're right. I mean, it's going to be hard to find answers on this team right now because they keep finding new ways to lose games, and it just makes it harder and harder for this team to get back up. So not just for next week, but the rest of this season is going to be probably the toughest test they've faced.
And you mentioned, too, that Ron Rivera's at the point right now where, I mean, what can you say? And I've been in that situation before where you run out of, you don't want to make excuses because I've always said excuses are for losers. But, what can you say? I mean, there's 3 games that you mentioned have not been finished out this year, though. But it's got to be frustrating for a team like this.
Yeah, it seemed to be very frustrating. The coach just kept saying it was a disappointment, and, there were no excuses. They just didn't recognize the things that were going on today during the game, and it just wasn't good.
All right, Dustin, and he kept making right there, the comment over and over again he said
missed opportunities. And, this is a team effort. I mean, let me first say that players, coaches, everything. But I mean, for me, a lot of this has to go on the coaching staff. When you have games like this that come down to the wire, when you have leads, and you have, like you talked about, Amber said it. They didn't recognize the coverage on that, or where Vincent Jackson was, the Tampa Bay's best receiver. They didn't realize where he was on the field. He was in the slot, and so their coverage wasn't prepared for it. Tampa Bay was able to score a touchdown, and for me, that goes back to coaching. You got to have communication to your players about what coverage you're going to run. You got to have communication about what formation Tampa Bay's in, and we've seen that multiple times. We saw it in the Atlanta game when they gave it the big play. So the same things seem to be happening over and over, and that goes back to coaching, maybe not making the adjustments. So we saw Marty Herney see his way out the door here a few weeks ago, and it may not happen this year, but things aren't looking bright for this coaching staff.
And again, it's got to be frustrating, too, because if you mentioned they came down the last drive with no timeouts. They had the busted coverage, gave up the touchdown, but called timeout. How hard is it to go down and get a touchdown and 2-point conversion when you got to have both to tie the game up to go overtime? You call timeout to set the defense after you've seen the formation and still give up the 2-point conversion.
Yeah, you still give it up, and Rivera talked about that. They called a timeout to see what Tampa Bay was in. Tampa Bay did not change their formation, went back to the same play, and they still were able to get a wide open pass for a 2-point conversion. So those are things that, whether it's players on the field with communication or coaches calling into plays, there's got to be communication there, and it starts at the top, and it's not happening. I mean, we saw the questions get more and more, kind of somber as if it wasn't already was. But I mean, they're asking the coach, hey, do you see yourself on the way out the door? I mean, how do you see this playing out? It's really getting ugly here in Carolina. Just when you think it can't get worse, it's getting worse.
And, I mean, you have seen some things, some Twitters that we may or may not want to go into with that, though, where the players are starting maybe to even point fingers, which is not a good thing at this point right now, too. And
yeah, we won't name names, but, I mean, we've seen it. I mean, people who follow these, a lot of fans follow players on Twitter, media follows players, so I'm sure multiple people have seen what we're talking about. We don't even have to mention it, but, again, that goes back to leadership in the locker room and leadership with the coaching staff. You've got to have control in your team, and the players, they got to take accountability. They got to have control as to know not when to say things like that. You got to come together as a team when you lose. If you try to break up, it's just going to make it worse. And I'm a little worried this last few weeks, Coach, because I see this locker room kind of separating. I see the coaching staff kind of run out of answers. And, I mean, as bad as it looks now, we may not have seen the worst of it.
And Amber, we talked early in the ball game too. I told you I thought I'd see more life in a funeral parlor out there, and it probably took the play with the interception return and the little scuffle out there, which was kind of comical out there, to kind of wake this team up and get it playing.
Yeah, I mean, we joked around up in the press box earlier. The most exciting part of this game today may have been halftime when the mascots had their mascot bowl. I felt like there was a lot better football playing happening during that than the game.
And we're going to let you, I gave you the job of recapping that, of telling us a little bit what took part then. I was actually trying to consume a couple of hot dogs at that point, though, but who the mascots were and some of the teams that were represented.
Sure. Well, while Dick and Dustin were eating, I was scoping the mascot bowl, and they had mascots from all of our local teams, universities, some pro teams. Of course, my favorites were Rufus Lynx and Chubby Checker of the Checkmates and the Bobcats. But it turns out it was pros versus college, and the pros ended up winning the game. So, yay for my team.
All right, and I will add on this too, Brandy, that she was not eating hot dogs. She was very good during halftime. We were the ones eating. She did very good today, though. So, Dustin, where do we go at this point right now, other than probably blow away here in just a minute? But, where does this team go? Because, like you said, did not come out with a lot of fire and emotion in the game today. The crowd, you can't really count on that because the crowd was listed as a sellout, but probably I'd say 50,000 something people like that. A lot of empty seats. People dressed like empty seats today, though. But where do we go?
Well, I mean, the crowd, you can't blame them. They're getting tired of seeing this product on the field. They come into expectations of a winning record, maybe even the playoffs after they saw what happened at the end of last year, and it's been the complete opposite. I mean, we're on pace to not even win the same amount of games we won last year, so that makes it tough for the fans to come out. I mean, we did have a sellout for 101 straight sellouts. That's a nice little streak they got going, but something's got to change, and when you talk about where we're going to go from here, it's got to be about pride for the players and the coaches. I mean, you gotta know now, as much as you hate to say it, coaches, players are playing for their jobs. I mean, there's going to be a lot of changes in the offseason. You got a new general manager coming in. The general manager likes to have his own coach, his own guys. So if you want to be a part of this future for this Panthers organization, you need to go out next week and put it on the line and know that your job's on the line no matter how much money you make. And that's what they need to. I hate to use one of Cam's phrases because you talked about it. You got to look yourself in the mirror and you got to go out and see if you and make some plays. I mean, regardless of what your record is, you get paid to come out and play this game, and they need to show some fire. And let's hope we can find that, because as much as we hate to beat the horse, I mean, this is getting bad. We have to talk about it because it's happening.
All right, Amber, we enjoyed having you back for week 2, though, and great job again today, though. What are your thoughts on today's game? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts, I think they just need to go home, regroup, focus more on teamwork and what they're going to do going into the next game. So hopefully we can get a win down the road.
Okay, Dustin?
I think going back to what you said, get out of town, get away from Charlotte, get away from, your family and friends are your support, but you also have the fans around here, the media, who you're going to read and hear about how bad you're playing. Get out of town, clear your head, just focus on playing football as a team and go out there on the line. You said, Philadelphia's having more problems than we are now. They had even higher expectations, and they had the same record, if not worse. So go out there. Show some pride and try to get a win on the road on Monday Night Football on national TV. I mean, you got to put some pride on national TV next week.
Definitely. Again, gut check time right now. My thought and final thought is Fido. Forget it and drive on. That's all you can do. You can't do anything about what's happened in the past, but you can do something about what's coming up in these last few games. Again, if you don't take pride in what you do, you don't want to go down with the same kind of finish you had a couple of years ago when you got the #1 overall pick, though. And hopefully this is a proud organization. The guys will step up and realize that, and we'll try to finish this thing out and get it finished in a positive way. Reporting for Carolina Panthers on the Prowl, she's Amber, he's Dustin, I'm the coach, Dick Cox. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next post-game wrap-up. Until then, have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.